Greetings, Troma fans, and welcome to Troma After Dark. I'm Flesh Wound Dan, joined by Troma superfan producer Todd.
Good evening.
Todd, how goes it?
All goes well. We get to talk some Troma. A little bit different than our other ones we've talked so far.
Down south to Tromaville, man. Yeah. These ones don't get covered very often. In fact, there's one of these that I barely even remember. I saw it, I think, once. So
I'm curious which one that is.
Kind of cool to revisit these. And this was okay. So these are DVD only as of this recording, and it was the Southern God, why am I having trouble with that? Southern Fried Comedy set, as Todd is holding up right now. And that's how you can find these. You never know. Maybe these will get a
Can I show this cover now? Do I have to blur it?
Yeah, probably blur it. YouTube's weird. Jesus. I don't know.
Well, then I'm...
Yes.
Well, never show it again. That's what I have to blur.
That's what you have to blur. So, yeah, no. Well, I don't know. So, basically, you're never going to get that Dukes retrospective.
I know. I'm going to keep showing it even though I got to blur it now.
There you go. He's not censoring boobies right now, but YouTube's weird. You just got to be careful, I suppose. But yes, it is Flesh Wound After Dark Troma Edition. And yeah, so these, like I said, these films get like no coverage. So I thought it was kind of an interesting pick, and we'll jump right into it. So we're going to go oldest film to, well, not newest. It's like 38 years old, but old to newer.
Order of release.
There you go. Order of release. I just, said it a different way, but that's what I meant. Order of release. And we'll kick it off with the 1971 film brand director Albert T. Viola. And in this one, phony backwoods preacher Amos T. Huxley stays in a small North Carolina town long enough to fleece his congregation, swindle the profits from a moonshine still, and seduce dumb blonde Mary Lou. Mary Lou's ex-boyfriend becomes suspicious of the preacher man and gets the local police to investigate his actions. All right, so I guess we can qualify these all as sex comedies. That's a big enough part of the plot that these would sort of fall under sex comedy, the sex comedy banner.
See, I'm closer to I think Southern comedy is like right where it's at, like Smokey and the Bandit type stuff.
Yeah, these could be sort of, they're Hicksploitation movies, is what they are. And there were they're regional Hicksploitation movies, and there were a lot of these. I mean, you had the trucker movie craze as well, which a lot of those could also fall under Hicksploitation. And a lot of them were quite a bit of fun. So we'll see where we are here. So Preacherman was released under, I believe it was Paragon put out the VHS back in the day. It became a Troma pickup at some point. And just to talk a little bit about the cast, which so smaller role here, and you may or may not know the name. H.G. Lewis fans might. J.G. Patterson Jr., who plays Farley in this film. He was a really interesting character when it came to drive-in cinema. He died, honestly, long time ago, not too long after this film in 1975. He was an interesting character. He did makeup effects on films like 3 on a Meat Hook. He also was an assistant producer for H.G. Lewis on The Gruesome Twosome. He directed a lot of not a lot of films, but he directed stuff like Dr. Gore, also known as Body Shop, which he also starred in. If you're a Something Weird video fan, you definitely know this guy. He was sort of a jack of all trades. He was a magician. He was a horror host on TV, producer, director, actor. He did the bonkers regional horror flick, The Electric Chair, which I believe Code Red put on Blu-ray years back. He was in Whiskey. He acted in Whiskey Mountain for director William Greffy. A great box set out on him. Greffy or Greff, I always forget. So he was somebody that, unfortunately passed very young, but left an interesting little mark. I wouldn't exactly say that Dr. Gore or Body Shop, as it was also put out under, or some of these films are fantastic movies, but he was very distinct and interesting. So I would recommend diving into his catalog if you're a fan of, names like Al Adamson or Andy Milligan. Check out his short but fascinating little run there. So we also, in this one, the director, Albert T. Viola, also plays Amos Huxley. And this movie is actually the tones. This one's definitely a sex comedy, in my opinion. It really follows that template from beginning to end. We kick it off with the preacher banging the sheriff's daughter in the barn and kind of getting busted, leading to a Benny Hill like chase. And Albert T. Viola, for a director acting in the movie, he's actually pretty good. I think he played the seedy Preacherman quite well. These movies are kind of weird because by all accounts, he's a piece of shit. And I don't think he ever really fully has a change in this movie, but nonetheless, I mean, he's a guy who, like, basically, these movies are very going to be very offensive to modern audiences because there's a lot of humor centered on more intimate assault, let's just say. And so they may not hold up too well. It very kind of like you said, Southern fried sort of cornball humor at times that may not translate well now to a lot of modern audiences. But like you said, if you're into the Hicksploitation genre, I'm a big fan of movies like The Dirty Mind of Young Sally or Country Cousins, which are much more like graphic, softcore Hicksploitation films. I always really love those. If you used to go and get the Something Weird video DVDs or tapes from Borders back in the day, maybe you came across those. I think they're a lot of fun. And this one is, I enjoyed it. Not sure who I would recommend it to. It's a tough one. You really kind of have to be, I think, fairly deep into the Hicksploitation subgenre to fully appreciate this. It's not a great film, but it's a really interesting lead performance, and I found it amusing. I'll put it that way. A lot of the, like I said, just everybody wants to bang Mary Lou, and it's a film that did well enough regionally, I think, over the Carolinas and elsewhere, that it did get a sequel in 1973 called Preacherman Meets Witter Woman, which I don't know. I have memory of this film. I don't have memory of the sequel.
Yeah,
I'll look into that someday because I'm not sure, and I don't think Troma ever distributed that.
No.
Okay, Todd's the authority on that one. So, yeah, what did you think, Todd? I think this is worth checking out for a specific audience.
Yeah, you nailed it with, I don't know who to recommend it to. I mean, besides you. This is like pretty much a dead genre, so it's hard. Like, find new fans, but I think if you're a fan of cinema, it is like a bygone era, and I think it's worth checking out. And I think this one, yeah, I get kind of stuck, like where, like you said, who to recommend it to.
I assume you hated the old, I don't know, gospel music, I guess. Did that drive you crazy? Because there's a lot of it.
No, it's funny because I don't know. I think I like this Preacherman, so it didn't bother me.
There you go. But yeah, there are some laughs to be had. I don't. Again, I'm not exactly sure who to recommend it to, but I think if you're interested in some of the movies that I mentioned, I think it's worth a go. Eileen Kristen, who played Mary Lou in this, actually did go on to have a career in a lot of these regional films around this era. There's not a lot that really continued to work over the long haul, but she is still active to this day, which I think is really cool. I believe this was her debut film, but she did some soap work. She was on TV shows like The Black Donnellys and Unforgettable. So pretty. She was, I think, in like Desperately Seeking Susan.
Okay.
Pretty cool to come from this tiny little regional film and being able to go on to have some mainstream success. So I think for me, the lead performance was memorable. I kind of would have liked to have seen Amos Huxley inserted into like a more traditional sex comedy that because I do think the character was pretty cool. It's kind of cool to have it from he's not really a preacher, but kind of like a preacher standpoint. I like that whole gimmick. I would have liked to have seen what this concept looked like in the 80s, where, sex comedies were really kind of hitting their stride. But I always tell people to go back because the sex comedy genre didn't start with, Porky's and Animal House. I love those films, but, go back and really dive into the sex comedies in Italy from Edwig Fenech and people like that. Because there's a rich history that I think modern audiences are barely even familiar with. So rating this one, I don't have anything bad to say about it. I'm giving it a 2.5 because again, I think the appeal's a little bit more limited, but nonetheless, and there's some nudity, but I always like to throw it out there. That's not, if that's what you're looking for, that's not in abundance or anything, but there is, full nudity in the film. So what say you, Todd? Maybe we'll get Vinegar Syndrome to restore these at some point.
I'd love to see him look even better. On this one, I'm yeah, it's hard. I was 2.5, 3. It is. It's average. While I did, I do have some, fun with the movie. It's not one of the best, so it's average. So I'm a 2.5 also.
All right, that works. And now we go to 1974 and director Will Zen's Hot Summer in Barefoot County. In this one, a city cop is sent out to the country to go undercover and bust up a ring of moonshiners run by a woman and her 3 hot teenage daughters. With this film, it was initially released as Truckin' Man. No, actually, I apologize, but it was released on a double feature with a film called Trucker's Woman that I think was also released as Truckin' Man, if I'm not mistaken. And this is the one I don't really remember too well. I'd imagine I did see it, but it kind of becomes apparent watching it, why I wouldn't remember this one too well. So you never quite know what the tone's going to be. I mean, Hicksploitation kind of covers a wide variety of things. Like I said, there's some great action films that fall under that banner of Hicksploitation. I really, more than anything, had a love of those sort of grindhouse softcore films like Country Cousins and Dirty Mind of Young Sally and films like that that I do encourage you to seek out. In fact, that would be something maybe we'll do on Flesh Wound After Dark at some point, because don't hear those talked about much either. And so yes, so this one's kind of a slog. I'm not gonna lie. We kind of open up with a car chase with moonshiner Mary Ann being chased by Sheriff Bull, who yeah. So this one's kind of more, so he kind of infiltrates the family, and it's more of a romance than anything. This one kind of has the typical like love montage stuff. It's got the Pink Panther knockoff music. The humor just doesn't connect with me. But again, this is a very different time. So, and even some of the films I referenced had a lot of cornball humor. I did think it was funny when Deputy Clyde ran out of the barn screaming, "They're trying to, arm me, Sheriff. They're trying to arm me." That part did make me kind of chuckle. There's a couple moments that were, again, more amusing than laugh out loud funny. And for you sex comedy people, the nudity is very light on this. You get some very, very brief blink and you miss it sort of partial nudity. So not one for the fans of Be Erotic, because that content really is not here. But refer to the films that I mentioned before if you want that. Yeah, I mean, everything unfolds as you'd expect. Guy gets girl, guy loses girl, guy gets her back. Like, spoiler alert. There's not a whole lot to this one. It's not particularly funny. Any like action elements are barely there. It's a slog. I didn't like this one, but how about you, Todd?
Yeah, this is definitely the turd of the three on the disc. And when I picked, when it originally came out, this was the one I was unaware of. Also, I'd seen Ellie and I had seen Preacherman from the VHS era, and this one I had not until the disc. And rewatching it just recently doesn't do it any favors, and unfortunately, it's one that's just a miss for me.
Yeah, no, this was one of those ones that I think you can skip unless you're just really, really looking for a deep dive into the Hicksploitation genre. I also, I mentioned some of those great trucker movies. I highly recommend, I mean, this is a bigger film. One that I always loved was Convoy, the Sam Peckinpah film with Chris Christopherson and Ernest Borgnine. Yeah. That one's somewhat fairly well known, but since I referenced like the trucker genre of action films that were so popular, check out Convoy if you haven't. It's easy to get a hold of, and it's a great movie. So there you go. Some trucking action movies and some Hicksploitation softcore. This one, I don't mean to be mean, but I mean, it's not for me. Maybe there's a small audience still for it, but I'm a half a star. I did not like Hot Summer in Barefoot County.
I'm a little less mean than Dan, but I'm only a 1.
Okay. Yeah, this is kind of like, I don't think I ever need to watch it again kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
But, all right. So Now we travel to the 80s, 1984, director Peter Whitman, and this is Ellie. Set in the backwoods of the Deep South, young, beautiful Ellie has just witnessed the murder of her father at the hands of her evil stepmother, Cora, and Cora's 3 lecherous sons, all hoping to get their hands on Ellie's father's money. Vowing to avenge her father's death, Ellie plots to do in the murderers using the only weapon she has, her hat body. All right, so I think this one is unique because it's a sex comedy that predicted the stepsister phenomenon. Oh no, I'm stuck under this table. That's so popular on the hub. This is
what's the hub, Dan? What hub are you talking about?
the P hub, Tad.
I don't know what you're talking about.
The P hub. You know, that big famous one. There's also the X hamster and the X videos and
wait. So you didn't want to say? Oh, it's because you don't want to say that word. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's as Woody Harrelson would say, that's a YouTube boo-boo word. So I'm trying not to say it.
Why would Woody Harrelson say that?
Champions, Todd.
Oh, that's right. Sorry,
Yes.
the first Champions reference of our shows.
It's a boo-boo word. Yes. So this one I think is a little bit easier to recognize or to recommend. Todd threw me off with the hub talk. Dirty mind. So it's 1984. This feels like a little bit more of a traditional sex comedy while still absolutely falling under the Hicksploitation genre. This director did also make another film that was a Troma pickup, Play Dead, with Yvonne DiCarlo, the Rottweiler film that Vinegar Syndrome did put out on Blu-ray, so you can go check that out if you haven't. This also has some big-time stars. The big one being Shelley Winters as Cora Jackson, getting towards the twilight of her career at this point. And so I will say this is another one at times that feels a little more amusing than laugh out loud funny, but I did have a good time with it. Shelley Winters was one of those actresses. Of course, she was huge. She did some, lesser B movies like this one, but she always sort of nailed her part. She's always one of those people that was compelling, irregardless of the movie, and this is no exception. And excuse me. So we kind of follow these perv sons. There's a photographer, voyeur, who's trying desperately to snap photos of Ellie through the beginning. We get to see, Shelley Winters concoct this plan to take out the dad. And then it's kind of like a comedic revenge film. She slowly whittles down Shelley Winters' family. And like I said, I can't say this is one that really made me bust a gut, but I still had a good time with it. It kind of flew by. I enjoyed it. You have the one creepy son who wants to also take pictures of his mom's feet. That might have been something that they also predicted for the P-Hub, Ted. And
P-Hub sounds like a very specific section for R. Kelly.
This is true. There might actually be a P-Hub. I feel like there probably would be. And I don't recommend you go check it out. But I don't know. We'll see. So this one does have some of the more standard sex comedy tropes. You do get some nudity, although again, it's full nudity, but it's kind of brief. It's not, once again, something that I'd recommend if you're just looking for those kind of thrills. There are multiple, granted played for laughs, but there are multiple assault attempts in this movie, so it's not aged very well. And But yeah, I did kind of enjoy this sort of slow build to her getting her revenge, how she managed to take out these different guys, these different horny guys, who probably catch on way, way, way too late. But this is, if you're only going to watch one, I think this is your best shot. Yep. What say you, Todd?
Yeah, that's basically what I was going to go with. I mean, this one's has the most universal appeal of them. While it still gets the spirit of the exploitation, I think a general audience might be able to have a good time with this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's easy to recommend. And I should also say Sheila Kennedy, who plays Ellie Jackson in this, was a Penthouse Pet of the Month back in 1981.
And more importantly, was also in the year before, directed by Lloyd Kaufman, Troma's The First Turn On.
Yes. I thought you were going to go with Spring Break from '83.
Oh, come on. I'm going with Troma first.
Not exactly a long career. I think she was only in a handful of movies, but she also was in National Lampoon's European Vacation as well. So yeah, I think she was one of the hostesses on the game show.
Yes, a blink and you miss it cameo, but yes.
But hey, you were in European Vacation, so that's pretty damn cool.
Not as cool as The First Turn On, but yes.
She's pretty fucking beautiful. I'd like to see like a new interview with her. Maybe Vinegar Syndrome puts this out, and just to catch up with Sheila today, that'd be really interesting. If you're a fan of Shelley Winters and you haven't watched this, I absolutely recommend it. She gets a lot of fun stuff to do in this movie. Not a classic. I don't think it's going to be anybody's favorite sex comedy, but I do think that you'll enjoy it. A little bit too much country music for my tastes. That is one thing. Like, obviously, again, it's exploitation. I really don't like country music. I've tried and I just can't get into it. But I figured that would be more of an issue for you with these films.
I could tune out shitty music like that.
Yeah. Maybe you can redub it with gangster rap. Might be kind of interesting seeing, Ellie getting chased around by these horny stepbrothers to NWA.
See, I figured you'd go with Ice-T.
There you go. We pitched it. The Tad Cut. So this one, I give it a 3. I had a lot of fun with this, and it made up for that last one, which was, it was a busy week for movies for me. And like, that was like, for some reason, sometimes it's just totally random. It was at the bottom of the stack and it was the last thing I watched. And I was like, oh, so at least I had this. So 3 stars for me.
Yeah, this one I'm also 3. I'm dead on this one with you.
Sweet. And if you'd like, once again, double it up with the director's Play Dead, which is on Blu-ray from Troma. And
if you want a triple, throw on The First Turn On, also on Blu-ray from Troma.
Yes. And for any of you listening to this later, please leave your thoughts on any of these movies. And
any requests of any Troma movies you want us to talk.
Absolutely. And anything that you're into as far as Hicksploitation, or we brought up some of those great trucker action films, which had a really good run. A lot of them are pretty well represented on Blu-ray as well. But look out for Country Cousins. It's a double feature from Something Weird with Midnight Plowboy. I'm a big Renee Bond guy. I'm also a big Harry Novak guy. So that's well worth picking up. I'm hoping AGFA maybe puts out a Blu-ray of those. I would love to see it. And I do have an affinity for this little subgenre. So I don't know that we gave you the best examples tonight of Hicksploitation, but you got some more rare ones. Nobody talks about it. So we hope you enjoyed the show. On that note, guys, check out our very active Discord, all that good stuff, patreon.com/fleshwoundfeatures, and we will see you here next time. Good night.
Good evening.